have some. Oh, welcome everybody. Brian, welcome. We have our opening act is here. John Wallace is going to give us a review of the. Or is this you, Ted? And then you're gonna.
John first.
Okay, so John, will you come on up and?
You don't want to miss any of tonight's.
So just to be clear, a review of Wildland fire season.
Oh, okay, never mind.
And welcome home.
Yeah, thank you.
Mike, huh?
Um, I'm not sure what to say. I just found out yesterday that you guys wanted to hear something. So yeah, we went on an EMAC, California. We were part of Task Force 3. We had 3 task force from Utah that went. Each task force consisted of 5 engines, 4 crew members, and then 1 or 2 task force leaders. So between the 3 task force, 15 engines, I think we had 64 people. So it went down to our first assignment was in Bel Air. We did a 40-hour shift there. I said I have pictures. We could take pictures. They just didn't want us posting them on social media. Cal Fire didn't want that happening. So anything we were to post, we had to run past their PIO. So I just kept my own pictures. I wasn't going to worry about it. So the first couple days there in Bel Air, the winds died down after we got there. So they brought in air tankers and helicopters and they hit it hard and they were able to knock down that pretty good. So we were part of structure protection there. And then after that, they shifted us into 24 hours on, 24-hour off. So they ended up housing us in some city offices in Santa Monica. And then we would spend our 24-hour shift on basically in Parkway Palisades is where it was. Our area was between the Pacific Coast Highway and Sunset Boulevard. And then we spent the rest of the time there just dealing with mop up. So what it is at night they would send up the drones with infrared, and then they would find where the hot spots were during the night, and then in the mornings they would give us those aerials, those pictures, and then we'd go out and find those, knock them down. But yeah, it's hard to describe. I've shown pictures to some people, but it was just mile after mile after mile of just utter destruction.
It was war zone, wasn't it?
Yeah, as a kid, I remember seeing pictures of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and that's what it looked like to me. Just every once in a while there might be a house standing that just was lucky enough to miss it, but yeah, it was just block after block after block of, and mile after mile after mile of just complete destruction. So cars melted, houses melted, or burned down. Yeah, it's just you have to see it to really believe it. So.
Well, I think that you represented us very well, and we certainly appreciate the sacrifice that you and the other members of the crew. So who was on the crew? I know.
So Lance, Lance,
Yeah.
and me, and then there were 2 guys that he's known before, 2 young kids. One was Levi. His dad was actually one of our task force leaders, and then the other kid was Jansen. I don't even know the last names, but 2 really good kids. They worked hard.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, and I said it was a good experience. I mean, it was tiring. Our 24-hour shifts on, we slept in the engine at night, so we'd go until it was dark, and then we could get out and walk around, but they didn't want us putting sleeping bags out, for presents or cots or anything like that. So for those 24-hour shifts, I would just sleep sitting in the chair and put my head on the steering wheel. So, and then the 2 boys would lay in the back, and Lance would try and sleep in the other seat. So,
I mean, I would imagine that that would add to the psychological stress a lot, not having a lot of sleep and then being very uncomfortable for the
yeah, I mean,
stretches.
yeah, you just kind of roll. It's all part of the experience, but
Yeah.
I'd get out and just walk a lot, just up and down the street.
John, I don't know if Dora was able to express to you some of the things that I said our last council meeting in Palisades when it started.
Okay.
And helped with some of that evacuation, and then saw all the devastation that
Oh, yeah, it's
happened, how
unbelievable.
awful it was. And, but as I was talking to some of the people who lost their homes. I had a family member who lost their home. I was visiting them. And we were all gathered together, and they are still in shock and disbelief. But the second I said, my city in Utah is bringing some people to help, just the tears that came. And how proud I was to be able to say we had people coming. And it didn't matter how many. They just really felt it in their heart that someone cared about them. And I just wanted to let you know, I'm still emotional about it because it just meant so much to them. And they told me, make sure you tell them thank you so much. Because even though we couldn't save their home,
Yeah.
it's still the idea that someone tried and someone showed up. And so thank you.
Yeah, we rubbed shoulders with residents. I mean, I'll be honest, the area we were in, it was Malibu. A lot of money, a lot of kind people, but we interacted, especially towards the end there when they started letting residents back in.
I was on between Pacific Palisades and Sunset, right where you
Yeah.
said you were.
Yeah,
It took us 5 hours to go less than 6 miles
yeah.
to get out, and people were running past us, and it was terrifying because fires were on both sides of the
Yeah.
road, right? But they told us we were in a place that we could keep going, but we knew not everybody could.
Yeah, no, the Sunset, there's a spot in Sunset that we'd go up past for a few days. And then they finally hauled it off that probably had 100 cars and it looked like they just hit and crashed and whatever. And
Well,
people,
they
you could
told
just
me-
tell people had just bailed and ran.
They had them get out,
Yeah.
and then the bulldozers had to push them
Yeah.
to the side so that they could get the fire
Yeah,
apparatus.
yeah, we saw a couple of
Oh,
that. And then they finally, one day we showed up and they, I guess overnight had just hauled them all out.
yep, it was just terrible. But thank you so much for being there.
No.
Were you in high value homes areas? Did you see, are these?
Yeah, so there's one home that was listed that was still standing in the neighborhood we were. So Lance called on it, talked to the agent. It was 7.8 million is what the asking price was.
Average price, I think, was just over 5 million. For a
I'm
house.
guessing 5. And then there's some homes in there that I'd heard people paid 30, 40 million
And
for.
they're right on the beach, it looked like. Some
Well, down on the beach in Malibu, those things were just burned.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were just gone.
Did you run into any movie stars?
Yeah, Chris O'Donnell.
Really?
Got pictures of him. Ran into him several times up there. He was so kind.
Huh.
Very nice. He,
Someone-
that the last time we saw him, he said, "You guys still here?"
You said somebody in the task force ran into Tom Hanks.
One of the others may have. Yeah.
Shopping center.
Yeah. Was it?
John, I'm down here in LA County right now, at one of our plants in Long Beach, and the people here wanted me to extend a gracious thank you for volunteering to do that and going down with that team. So, they asked me to extend that to you, and the team.
Pass it on to the other 3 that were with me. So, no, good experience. People were kind. We had a couple of one night in a restaurant. We'd popped in and a guy come up and footed a very nice dinner for us. And then one of the guys there in Malibu, our whole task force took us out one night on one of our off nights. And yeah, I did some simple math. It was not cheap. But
Well-
just people just to say thank you. So yeah.
And well deserved. And I'm just even putting out those hot spots. I mean, you obviously made a difference. So
Well, yeah, like I say the first few days we were there was a little more intense, and then obviously as things backed off. But again, just people ask a lot of questions, but keep in mind, I mean, especially for those of us that deal with the fires, when you've got 80, 100-mile-an-hour winds coming through, there's not a whole lot you can do. It's hard to get ahead of that. So it's just, yeah, you have to see it to believe it.
well, thank
I
you.
do have one kind of fun, not fun, but a really miraculous story because of the pet situation. You know, a lot of people had to leave, and the fires were going so fast. I mean, you can't even describe those winds and then how fast it was going. They told us it was about 3 to 4 football fields per minute.
Mm.
And then the wind was just blowing, the ash was falling, and the pets were scared. And so there was some pet rescue people that came and put up, after things were calmed down, they put up like ring cameras on some of the all the houses are burned, but they put these ring cameras up and they put food and water out
Oh,
just in case.
I saw a lot of food
And
dishes
so-
out.
and
for
so
food
people
and
were
water for
putting
animals in people's
their
driveways, yeah.
pictures of their pets on this site, and then they were putting this out with the picture so that if there was movement, it would take the picture. And my cousin, 3 weeks to the day, their cat came back into the yard.
Where did it go?
And they don't know where it went because there's not anything within miles, not
Mm.
one piece of green, right? And there's their cat, and it's kind of
Wow.
burnt, but it was alive, and they let them in to get their cat and take it to the vet, and it's now recovered. But you know, the people who do that, who can come in and think, oh, that cat's going to come back, no matter how far away it ran, it's going to come back to its home. And that was kind of the only miracle they had, was that because they escaped with just the clothes on their back,
Yeah.
right? And I drove them out. So it was just so surreal to think 3 weeks later, what was it eating? Where was it getting water, right? And yet it was there. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
No, and for me, I mean, in my personal experience, you know, it made me recollect our experience here, and
Trigger.
you know,
huh?
yeah, it's just, you know, we lucked out and they didn't, and you know, it just is what it is. But it's going to be a while before they get that put back together again, I think.
Did you ever go on another one?
Yeah, I've talked to Chief.
I just
Potentially,
asked
yeah,
him In case he needed you.
yeah.
Well, and I know it was a.
Smack him.
I'm not sure what that means, but
We're getting married on the 12th,
oh, gotcha. Okay, now I know what it means.
Yeah.
Okay,
so now smack him.
that's the sort of the first test, right?
That won't be a test.
But I think that even
No
though the
fire,
outcome
no
was not ideal, I mean, you guys made a difference, and so thank you for doing that.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good experience for me.
Well, we appreciate the report. Anybody have any other questions for John? Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
So now Chief's gonna ask for more money.
He can sure try.
Yeah. Janet, you need to go on a break, Janet.
You might want to leave for this one. Ready to go. Take my jacket off, get ready to go to blows, Janet.
All right, go.
All right, so I thought we talked a little while ago about just giving you a quick wildland report on how our crew's done over the last 3 years since we started the program. But just quickly, I wanted to show you, these are letters that came from California to our fire group, from some schools down there. So they were really thankful and supportive of the work we were doing. So it was great we could send a crew down there. Really helped out the area. So it was kind of neat to get those letters in the mail. But anyway, and you're welcome to read through all of them if you want.
I think that was one of the things after our fires, that when all of those school kids wrote their thank yous and we put them in those binders to give to them, and they were just shocked to get those. 'Cause
So
nobody had ever given them to them before.
what I want to do is just do an update on how our wildland program's been doing. So you'll see up on the screen there's a spreadsheet. So we went through and figured out all our income and expenses over the last 3 years. So this program started in 1922, in 2022. Yeah, we've been doing this a long time. Yeah. So in 2022, we started the program. The years down there, starting from the bottom up, represent the different colors represent the years. So 2022 is the orange there. 2023, we only got on 2 fires in 2023, and then 2024. Now these are all under the IROC. So we run under 2 contracts. One of them is IROC, Interagency something or other. I can't remember. I read it about every 2 weeks and then forget it again. But so it's a contract through the state, and it's a kind of an interagency with BLM, Forest Service. They've kind of joined together and they've created a dispatch center, and we are one of the resources under that interagency organization that goes out on these, responds to these fires. It can be in state or out of state under IROC. And all of the fires that we went on up till this last one has all been under IROC. So you can see we've been on that many IROC deployments over the last 3 years. And then you'll see under other, we had the EMAC, which is the one that John just got back off of. That is a contract that's under, it's through FEMA, and it's the State Division of Emergency Management that runs that contract. So we run under that one as well. kind of two separate programs. EMAC is usually for the more severe things that would happen, like a California fire, where IROC is kind of what I'll call your run-of-the-mill fires type thing. And then we did get a grant this last year as well, kind of an unexpected grant that helped us take care of all those down trees during that big snow we got and brought all those trees down. But that was our mitigation crew that helped clean that up. So that was money that went towards our mitigation program. So as you can see, over the past 3 years, our program has brought in about $560,000, almost $561,000, 402 off the IROC, and then 158-ish off the EMAC and the grant. So then if you go down and look at the box below, you'll see that in the year, those break it down by year income per year and expense per year. And that was the expense for our wildland crew in total. That was to have them all year long, whether they be on a fire or whether they were working in the city doing mitigation work.
These numbers include when residents have hired the crew.
So this doesn't count that. It was pretty, I mean, we're talking probably, yeah, I mean, maybe $6,000, maybe $5,000 is what we've got from residents who have hired our crew. Pretty minimal. And I didn't go back and pull those numbers. But you'll see there the net. So the net between each year is the first year we did really well. Second year, we lost some money when that was the year we only had the 2 fires. And then the third year, I essentially broke even. We came out a little bit ahead. And then this year so far, we're doing well. We're starting off with pretty good traction. And I think all reports are it's going to be a fairly heavy fire year again this year. In fact, I was talking to the state fire warden a couple of weeks ago down at fire school, and he said, if your crew's available, we're sending people to Texas right now. So, so as soon as we can get land situated and get at least one crew to go with him, and we'll probably put them available and see how early we can start getting them out. And we won't have them working in the city until, probably May or so, but at least if they're around, them would be available to go. So, so the net that we have made over the 3 years is around $131,000. Is what the program's brought into the city. That's the financial benefits we've got from the program. In addition to that, we've done countless hundreds of hours of in-city mitigation work. If you threw that into the dollar numbers, we'd be way up into the $200,000-300,000 mark. But so in addition to the financial gain, we've also gained a lot of mitigation work within the city.
Normally that money just gets absorbed back to the fire department. Is that what?
So there's going to be one of my please. So normally what happens is the income from the year from the fires, 75% of it goes back into the wildland program. 25% of it goes to the city. Just, I guess, to the general fund to help pay for whatever, renting the city vehicle or whatever. I was going to plead with the council to maybe consider this year taking the 25% and putting back into the wildland program for so we can keep this program going strong, unless it's needed elsewhere in the city. But that's not the money request yet. That's just a thing to consider.
That's just a teaser.
That's just a teaser.
Well, Ted, the way it's shaping up, if the city did take their 25%, that would still leave $100,000 to kick the program off this year, which is more than enough. Because we're going to need between the time that Lance and the crew starts in April to the time we really start making money or before the end of the fiscal year, it's only like $9,000.
Yeah.
So when I ran payroll and stuff like that. So this fire in California really helped propel us. We would have been closer to break even, but from a financial perspective, this has been a good thing for the city, not only financially, but it's also been good for PR. It's been good for equipment, and it's going to potentially be able to help fund some equipment that the fire department needs, that these changing laws and changing things keep happening.
Yeah, and you're right, Chris. My hopes is we can build this program big enough that we can get eventually a new brush truck for the crew if we keep it going strong, to keep doing that. But my request this time is going to be a little different than a brush truck. Do you want me to hang on until we make the large purchase request, or do you want to know, or do you?
I say let's
Lead
forge
into
ahead.
it?
We've
Okay.
sort of laid the groundwork, so now
Yeah.
the ask.
So
Will
here's,
you be sending us this report?
yes, of you. So keep your eyes down, Janet. Don't look at me.
Will you be sending us this report up so we can look at it?
Yeah, I think Chris has got it. He can send it, or I can,
Okay.
yeah,
if
Jody.
One
or
of you could send it to us so we can just kind of look it over. That would be great.
So on the EMAC fire that the crew just went on, we've calculated all of our reimbursements, and the EMAC fire, as you can see on that line item up there, it brought in about $138,000. Roughly $138,000. Of that 138, 60 something thousand of it paid the crew. So our balance that the truck made, right down there at the bottom, our expenses were 71,000. That included some fuel that we had to buy and stuff like that. So our net was $66,000. The actual money we're requesting from the state's like 72 for the truck, but that we had some fuel and some expenses to take out of that. So of that, they will pay 75% right away of that $72,000. So it's 72,620, I think is what it was, somewhere right around there. They'll pay us 75% out of the state funds. And then the additional 25%, they will then reimburse us once they get reimbursed. The state does from California. So we'll get that first 75% pretty quickly, which is going to be $55,000 roughly of that 72.6. My ask is that we have right now all of our SCBAs, and for those of you who know what don't know what the SCBAs are, those are the packs that you see the firemen carry on their back with the oxygen tanks and the masks and the things that hook to them. All of ours either have expired or are expiring this next year or two. And the company that makes those is also out of business, and they no longer certify our SCBAs, and we can't get parts for them. About 3 weeks ago, we went down on a fire in Salem. It was a shed fire, but we sent 3 of our firefighters in on air in that shed fire. 2 of the firefighters had to come right back out because their SCBAs failed on them. And so that is a big risk that we're putting on our firefighters. And we just don't know the condition of the others. We can't, there's no way to get them inspected because the company's out of business. We're losing our certification, which also affects in the long run, our ratings for our fire department, which then affects our ratings for our insurance coverage because we're required to have equipment no older than 10 years old. And our SCBAs, I think, are mostly older than that. So I got
How long are they good for?
what's that?
How long are they good for?
Well, it varies on how much they're used. NFPA says any equipment over 10 years is out of service.
Okay.
But their actual life just depends on use.
Do you need one for every firefighter? Or
No, and I'll
certain
explain that.
Okay.
Yeah. So a couple of years ago, just before I took over as fire chief, Craig went and bought a bunch of bottles for the SCBAs, which is great. That helps because our bottles were expiring, those oxygen bottles. And that helped us get through the last few years. They're now expiring, the bottles, but more so the packs are what are failing on us and expiring. So last week, I got a call from our vendor who supplies a lot of equipment for us. And they had an order of brand new SCBAs that were on last year's pricing that fell through somewhere in Wyoming. So he offered us SCBAs at last year's pricing, which saves us about $3,000 per SCBAs. These things are around $10,000 for a whole setup. This will save us about $3,000 per SCBA. I've asked him to send me a price for 6 of them. The reason being is because NFPA says you have to have one SCBA for each seat in your engine. And we have 4 seats in our new engine. So we need 4 seats with SCBAs, and then we have 2 for what we call a RIT team, which is a rapid intervention team that they set outside the house or whatever that's on fire. So if anything happens to the crew that's inside, they're all ready to go, and they did get dispatched into the house to help rescue a crew member or whatever happens. The cost for those 6 SCBA's was about $49,000, almost 50. It was 49,000 some change.
And that's from a sale in Wyoming?
Well, the vendors here in Salt Lake,
Oh,
but they had them. Fire department in Wyoming ordered them, and then their funding fell through.
mm.
So they're now making these available at last year's pricing. And let me say, they're about $1,500 cheaper for the SCBA themselves, but because last year they had a special running where when you got the SCBA, they gave you an extra bottle with SCBA free, which we have spaces on our engines where we put these extra bottles. So if someone runs out of air, you can just switch out the bottle and they can go right back in. So they all come with a free bottle. That's about $1,500 value there too. That's the $3,000. So my ask is, or to consider, since these are very expensive and it's hard to find money in our budget for these. They're $10,000 a piece. My total equipment budget is $45,000 for the year. So this wouldn't even buy the 6 of them, our budget, without using all of our budget. And so, and I've applied for grants for these AFG grants. They're very difficult to get those AFG grants. They're so competitive. We've been trying for years, haven't been successful yet. If we are this year, I would like to buy more of them because we've got another engine we can equip down there too. So my ask is to consider letting us use this EMAC money that we've made, this initial 75% that's coming in from the state to purchase SCBA's, at least enough for our fire engine.
So what would that leave your current balance at going forward into this next season? Because I know last
For the
year-
Wildland crew,
Yeah. Would that cover the nut?
It would
Yeah,
leave
so-
80,000.
about $80,000.
You could cover payroll into next year. If,
Yeah, we only need about 9 or 10,000 to get us to July 1.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And then if they make, of course, go out on fires, that just adds to that coffer. But our idea is that we can, as you mentioned, if we could support them for a year if they didn't go on a fire.
Perfect. And Chris, does that include the 30% going or the 25% going back to the city into
No.
the general, or does that?
No, we need to take about $32,000 away from that 130,000 right there. There's still plenty if the city wants to recoup some of this. There's still plenty in there for the 25% and the bottles and to keep the guys going this year, the rest of this fiscal year.
And if you look at it kind of this way on this one specific fire, because that's the money I'm spending is this EMAC fire, the first 75% that comes in from the state is what we'd use for the bottle. The remaining 25% from the fire would then be in effect go to the city, which is 25,000.
All right. So I guess, I don't know if it's Chris or Ted. So your ask is to use the EMAC money that we just received from the California fire to cover the $40,000 total to buy these new equipment that should last maybe 10 years. It depends on the use, but that is it. And then, and it comes with some extras because of the deal. And then we would then put money for replacement as we go forward then, so that in 10 years or sooner, that there would be money for you to be.
That'd be awesome if the council would consider that. The problem is my budget's so small right
I
now.
know, that's what I'm
We
wondering.
barely make it through the year on what we have.
'Cause it would be really hard then in 10 years when none of us are here in the council to be able to say, hey.
In addition to
we
this,
didn't
we've
plan
got
for you
all
to
of our,
replace these, and now they're double.
we've got all of our structure turnout gear that we wear. That's about $3,500 to buy a set, not counting the boots and the helmet, which we got all new helmets, but I've got a number of those that are starting to expire. So,
Yeah.
so it's really difficult on what we have to be able to do everything. So I don't know that we could set money aside, but we'd sure, we could try, but then usually that means we have to forego something else. Like
Right.
I've got, a bunch of SUV or structure turnout gear I could buy right now. We've got so many needs for our engines that
I
it's well
know.
beyond, like everything else in the city, right?
Well,
The-
it'd be nice if we had, continued, I mean, not big fires, but good income
yeah.
with that program. And if every year, I'm just saying, if every year you could take 50,000.
Yeah. If we got an EMAC every year, that'd be awesome.
And I mean, you don't want the big fires. I mean, we don't want that, but I'm just,
Yeah.
it would be nice if the program could bring in money where you could take 25 or 50,000 every year and put it back into
Put it back in because you're right. I remember quite a few years ago, we were talking about, oh, we have to have new equipment because it's outdated, and it's so hard because you have to, whether the equipment is still usable or not is not really the issue. Is it certified still? And so it counts that ripple effect down to our residents that said this affects our rating, which then could affect your insurance.
Yeah.
And so I think that's the hard part you have as chief, is keeping up on all the stuff that has to be rated and current, you know, whether it's the fire apparatus all the way down to the boots
Yeah.
and everything in between. And so it
Well, I
is
think
hard to
that's
put
And we-
that
many
in
of
the,
our firefighters.
well, yeah.
Yeah,
And there's-
yeah,
so
we've
there's
done a
all
lot
of
of
that.
good work replacing that. I mean, we were able to get the new engine, which helped us a lot, and we've got new wildland gear fairly recent. That's good. So there's a lot of good things done, but there's just a lot more to do.
But what I guess I'm saying is that our little city, I think our residents should know that we're trying our best to keep up with all of that. Why there's so much snow removal and roads done and water systems and everything else, and we only have a certain amount, and we know, get these
Yeah.
are paying on the property, it doesn't cover.
And that's why these events that come along like this help us out a lot and allow us to do some of this. So that's why we thought this might be a good idea.
John, you have something?
As one of the firefighters that actually does go into a burning home, these current SCBA's are of concern because of their, not sure if they're gonna make it. Yeah, I mean, their life is over and we can't get them serviced at all. So it is a concern. This is a godsend, this money that's come from this EMAC thing. I mean, without it, you guys would still be trying to find a way to buy these SCBA's. I look at this as an opportunity to just, I mean, it takes a big burden away from the city trying to find $50,000 somewhere else. So,
And generated through firefighting.
Yeah.
yeah, and it was generated from that.
From our fire engine that needs the SCBA's.
Right, yeah. I think it's a perfect fit.
So this is something we need tonight because these SCBA's are out nationwide and they're not going to last long. I called the vendor today. He's doing everything he can to hold them for me.
But I don't see it on this.
I forgot to put it on the business and
It's not on our
discussion, but we
business
can do it
discussion.
as a.
Large purchase.
Large purchase request.
Yeah,
Large purchase.
Yeah.
It's on the work
It's
session
only on the work session, not on the actual
approval,
meeting.
but you can do it as a
Pending.
a straw
pending.
poll.
pending. And then, you know, you can get the purchase order and we can put the purchase order
Yeah,
on
we
the
could do
next
it
city
pending.
council
Yeah.
meeting.
Because I was looking at that going, okay, you're asking and it seems like it's a really great thing, but I don't see where we're voting on it. So
Then
that's
we
why I
would
asked.
just put a stamp on it next time, Jody.
I would very much.
Well, there could be a little wrinkle in this whole thing, and that is we need to follow the purchasing policy. And if this comes in at 49,900, we're okay. But if it comes over 50,000, we have to go out to bid on it.
Yeah.
And
the quote-
that'll postpone it a couple weeks.
I've got,
Everything
yeah,
like that.
I'll tell him he has
Tell
to
him-
say that number.
Tell him the limit's 40. See what happens. 39,000. What's the number, the dollar number for us to get the old fire engine up for EMAX?
To send the old one out.
Because I know that was the plan.
Yeah.
We were sold as a council. Well, I wasn't on the council at the time, but we were told one of the benefits of the new truck would be able to get the old truck up
Yeah.
for EMAC.
Right. And so really it's not, it's a matter of that truck could go anytime on an EMAC. It depends on the nature of the call. Now, this specific one that came out with California, they were asking for type 1, type 3s, which our new engine is. Our old engine is only a type 1. So if they're asking for type 1s on a structural protection detail, and there were some type 1s, a lot of type 1s that went. We had a little question mark whether that'd make it down there for 2 weeks in California too. So,
That's why I wonder
But I
what's the
think-
dollar number to get
Break
it
down in
ready.
But
Vegas.
but the good thing, the good news is we still didn't leave the city without coverage of a fire truck because it's still a good fire truck and it may have just done fine. It has no issues with it. But the specific nature of this one, it made more sense to send our new engine than the other one. But that other one can go anytime on an EMAC. I mean, it's ready if we got a crew. That's the big thing. You have to have a crew of 4 that go with them. One has to be an engine boss certified, and the other one has to be an engineer or ADL certified, which is what John is.
On and Lance.
Yeah,
qualified
yeah.
for
It
this.
took them 2 to make this work, and then we needed 2 other certified firefighters. But the old one can go anytime as well. It was just this specific circumstance. It made more sense to send our new one this time. which worked out great. I mean, they both make the same amount of money on a fire.
Okay, so the two things I want to make sure then, so we don't have to go out for bid on this one.
The quote he sent me was 49,000 and some change.
Okay.
So I'll tell him, don't change that.
Okay, and so then the second item would be procedurally, Jody, so what would we do here? We would just make it,
Do a
Could this
PO.
almost fall under emergency purchase? Because our guys
Yeah.
are going in uncertified with equipment that is faulty.
I
Yeah.
think the emergency actually would come more under the fact that this opportunity arose.
Yeah, and
Very
he's, I
tight
mean,
deadline.
these things probably won't last the week.
So I'd
They're
say
going to go
that's-
our
fast.
fingers are crossed that they will last the night, right?
Yeah, when I called him
Yeah.
this afternoon to see if he still had him, he says, "Let me call my supervisor and see what we've got, and I'll see if I can hold him for you." But
So,
As long
not
as
that we
can do
usually
it.
like to respond to,
Yeah.
you know,
yeah,
act now types of, but this is an act now.
this is just one of those things where everything kind of lined up, and if we can act on it, I think it's a win-win for the city and for the fire department,
Okay,
and
so,
saves us money.
so,
How much money?
About
It's
18,000 it'll save us
18,000.
buying them right now.
Yeah.
And
So do you need a consensus from us, or do we need to vote? What do we need to do?
I think you can do a consensus on it
Well, I know, but
under large purchase requests. I mean, you can amend agenda if it's an emergency. You can hold an emergency meeting if the emergency is warranted. In this case, I guess you can say you do not have SCBAs that are working, and we either don't send our fire officials into a fire, and that's it. So if one of the homes catches on fire, sorry, we can't do it, or we approve the purchase and have it be as part of an amended emergency agenda.
So Jody, when the mayor calls to order the council meeting, then one of us would move to amend the agenda for an emergency to add up the purchase of this SCBA equipment.
As long as it falls under the 50,000.
Okay,
There's
Okay.
the kicker.
okay, so we can do that then
Yeah.
at the meeting.
perfect.
I guess I'm asking if anyone is opposed, because you could go call before they're gone. That's what I'm saying. Not that we're voting right now, but.
Anyone opposed?
Is anyone opposed?
He's even taking his jacket off, so
Yeah,
he's in a fighting stance.
I don't see how we could be opposed, especially because they went and they have this money.
They went and earned
there,
it.
And
I know.
it's a,
Yeah, no, you're saying if there's some urgency to it, go lock him in right now?
I'm just saying,
yeah,
we
no-
can officially vote and amend in a minute, but I'm saying maybe Ted should maybe make a phone call before they're gone.
Yeah, let's just make sure,
What
well, I
time
mean,
they
he's got a
close?
few other things,
Well, I just texted him. He, salesman type guy. I would just say, hey,
And lock them down.
yeah, so you can just do it through text then?
yeah, I'll text him.
All right,
Um,
well, I just don't want you to go too far because you've got other things you have to talk about, so.
Yeah, they're going to try and work with us too on timing of the invoice because
Okay.
we want to get the state money for these. So he's going to work with us on that.
Excellent.
That's very,
yeah.
At the bottom of the spreadsheet, I went ahead and just filled out a little bit more information for you guys. So if the city retains the 25%, that's 33,000. We're gonna need some payroll for the guys and girls if they from April 1st to June 30th. And then the SCBA's are there at 49,000. That still leaves us basically $39,000 still remaining to push into another year or something like that. Or use the city council to grab all that money and take it for the city coffers, or you can give it to the fire department, or we just hold on to it.
That's 3 threats from our fire chief
yeah.
in one presentation.
Hey, this
And
program helps
the-
for us. Want to keep it strong.
I think so.
These expenses, did they include the maintenance that old truck has needed to keep it going?
The brush truck,
Correct.
yes, that includes all the maintenance.
Yes.
It includes towing it off the fire when it got broke down.
Does it include?
All those expenses
towing
included all
the
that.
Tower.
Now, yeah, I happen to know the tow guy, so we didn't have to pay for the tow truck that was towed by the tow truck.
Okay, so we didn't
Just
get
the
double
tow
billed
truck
for the
that pulled the
towing.
tow truck that pulled our brush truck.
I had a question from a citizen, the expenses on the last fire, did they include like the wear and tear for the traveling the long distance on our truck?
So that kind of gets incorporated into the mileage
Okay.
when you get reimbursed. It's a truck cost, right? I mean, it did include everything we had to put up to get there in California and back. Now they paid when on the fire, they paid for a lot of our fuel while they were on the fire. We had to fill it up going to and from, but they had fire paid for our fuel. If we had any maintenance stuff, they had maintenance there to people to fix it, stuff for us and stuff like that.
Okay.
Yeah, but you returned with California water and we know that doesn't put out fires.
Yeah, yeah.
You
So
did.
When you
we
have
had
it,
to
it
we had to
does.
drain the tank and
Right.
You drained it? You drained it and put
We
Utah
used
water
it.
in?
We used it
We
in
used it.
training.
Perfect.
So just one last comment, Chief. This is just between you and me. Uh,
And everybody
we really need the Bluetooth in those masks so we can understand the guys that are in the house. So whatever, make sure that's
that
included.
might have to come out of a different budget because it might put us over the 50, but I'll ask him.
Okay, yeah.
Oh, yeah, that might have to be a separate.
But I agree, that might
Can't
be,
understand them.
it'd be a good option to have, certainly.
It's a new thing with these SCBA.
You can Bluetooth to your radios now. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, the 50 is only pertaining to the tanks and the packs, not anything additional.
Right.
Yeah.
So we don't
yeah,
want to
they-
split. We don't want to split invoices. So if you needed 10
Right.
tanks and to split invoices, that'd be illegal.
So I think right now we call them, this is an SCBA order.
Yeah.
And that way we're not trying to, play games with the financial policies.
Right.
This is just for
Just-
air supply.
For the quote he gave me. Yeah.
All right. Any other questions? Okay.
Thanks.
Thanks, Ted. Parks, Trails, and Recreation grant request. So Sherry,
She's
I
not.
did see Sherry, but I guess,
She was on the.
She's on. It's just with this screen, you can't see her.
okay. So Chris, you want to give an update there?
Yes. Give me just a second here. So we have, sorry, I'm making my camera on. We have a request from the Parks, the PTR committee, to have the city fund up to $25,000, if I remember correctly, for pickleball or something of that nature, correct? And
Yeah,
so
but-
in looking at the financials, the one thing I didn't quite get, Mayor, I couldn't remember if it was this current year or next fiscal year that they would be needing the money. Next fiscal year makes it easier. This fiscal year could be done, but we'd have to move some budget items around. And this is where we would probably end up taking from Mr. Mickelson's pot of funds to fund this temporarily. So that's kind of, but for the 25,000, if we get a match, yes, we can move things around. But if it's not a match and we just have to give 25,000, that might be a little
Chris,
more problematic.
couldn't we put it on, Chris, that the pickleball courts were for the mental relief of the fire people for all the stress that they've been going under? So it would be very, it seems applicable to take it from their budget.
If they forget
So
on
we got
the
Yeah.
39,000.
right all the time.
Yes.
When we talked, Chris, in our staff meeting, I think that, and Sherry, just for your information, I think that we should aim for next fiscal year to have this money. And so I don't know. So getting back to kind of the original purpose, I wanted to make sure that we had sufficient optimism that we would be able to cover that match in the event that Sherry and her committee moves forward with the application. I mean, that's still a big if, getting that money. But if we do get that money, then I think that what we would need to plan on is that money would come from the next fiscal year, but that we do have the means to cover our portion of the match. Do you get that,
Yes,
Sherry?
oh,
No, that's all. What
Okay.
were you going to say?
No, I was gonna say, just taking a chunk out for the parks, but let's just say they don't get the grant. Just want to make it clear that the money goes back into the general account to go back into the roads and not just, well, we didn't get the grant, but we got $25,000 there to do something else.
Yeah, no, and that I agree. That was something that this was. I mean, we have to rob Peter to pay Paul in basically every transaction we do in the city. So this was something where we felt that the pickleball court, there was enough support with the community development data that we had, and it seemed like something that met with a lot of residents' wishes. And so, but I agree. My intention is to not just give $25,000 for any purpose relating to PTR, but if we can get that grant, that this would be money well spent. So
Yeah, the return on investment is huge. For 25 grand to get all that money is a great benefit to the city.
I agree. Jody,
And
what
we
were
had
you saying?
discussed potentially doing this by a resolution where we specified that the 25,000 would only be for the use of a pickleball court, after getting grants and things like that. I provided a copy of the resolution, a proposed resolution to yourself and Chris. I didn't hear back on it, but if you'd like me, I can forward it to the council, and then that proposed resolution could be put on the next city council agenda for approval.
Yeah, no, I think
I
that'd be
think
great.
Sherry needed something. Didn't she need something in writing from the city?
I believe that there was some level of commitment that was required. Sherry, do you have any information on that?
I've asked Sherry to unmute. Maybe she.
It seems like maybe she stepped away because she's not texting me either.
Okay. Well, I hope she heard.
Well, and I think that resolution it would show commitment on the city's part that we are willing to do, 25,000, but it would be based upon them getting additional funds to take care of it.
Yeah. Okay. Perfect.
So I would probably, wouldn't we want to say up to, because if we can do some in-kind match, it might not necessarily be that much cash. So I think I would word it as up to the $25,000
Good suggestion.
in match to the grant.
Yeah, no, 25 was kind of a worst case scenario that we were envisioning, but I think that's a good point. Yeah, if we can get any way to bring that that price tag down, that would be great. Okay. Well, yeah, Wayne. Go.
I know there's a lot of moving parts to these things and timing and everything else, but we've long talked about establishing a list of priorities. And as we're going into next year, we don't even know what our budget's going to be or what the requirements are going to be. And I'm concerned we're treating things one at a time when we need to look at the whole thing and see, well, this will fit into the priority that we're looking at, and we want to put it at this place. And I just see us continuing to piecemeal a little bit our budget. And I know, again, there's a lot of moving parts to these things and timing and applications and all this sort of thing. But I just wanted to remind us all of that effort that we need to, I think, give our best effort to putting into those kind of pieces, establishing a list of priorities and looking at them and seeing where they'll fit into the overall budget process. So I just want to make that comment.
That's a
Good reminder.
Yeah, for sure. Thank
It's
you.
easy to piecemeal when someone brings you something. Seeing the whole.
Okay. Well, unless there's more, we'll move on to item 3, the Be Ready Academy presentation. Aaron, take it away.
Thank you. So I have a presentation PowerPoint that I shared, which is coming on board now. Real quick before I start, I wanted to give you a quick update on 2024 for Be Ready. We set a goal last year of raising enough money to purchase an emergency trailer and fill it full of medical supplies. We were successful. We purchased a brand new 16-foot trailer. Right now it's 70% full of medical supplies.
Wow.
We've gotten a truckload of donation from the Camp Williams military base, and then we also got some donations from the Utah County Search and Rescue. And then we've got another truckload coming in from the camp. And so these are supplies that we have in our trailer available in case of a long-term disaster or a big one. So a lot of bandages, splints, tourniquets.
Where's the trailer?
It's on my property.
Just
across
so
the
I know
street.
you know where it is. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, it's across the street.
Very good.
And so
Nicely done.
and the doors open
Yeah.
that way so you can actually access it real easily. So you don't have to move the trailer.
This is great.
I will get with our EMS captain and show her what do you call that? A inventory
Oh,
of the supplies that we've already got. Also, we've had about 5 of our community doctors have issued commitments to join me on a humanitarian project that we're going to start up, where we're going to try and raise more medical supplies and then take them down to Central or South America to deliver them to communities down there that are short of supplies. So it's growing. We're getting other hospitals that are saying they're willing to give us supplies, but we don't have the storage room in my trailer for something out of a hospital, which started me thinking about what can I do to help improve that capability in our community, as well as some other services that I think could be useful for our survival if there's a long-term major disaster. This presentation is designed to test the county, the council's interest in pursuing this. You'll see it's a bit ambitious, but you're talking to me, and I mean, you guys lucky I didn't start with this last year. I started out small with the trailer. I'm thinking big now. So go ahead and hit the first tab. Tab, spacebar, anything?
Who's doing it?
Okay, there we go.
Oh.
So we would like to build a monolithic dome to be used as base of operations and storage of critical medical supplies and emergency food. Space bar. Let me back up and tell you about a monolithic dome. I want a structure that's fireproof, earthquake-proof, avalanche-proof, flood-proof, and the monolithic dome is the highest standard that you can have for a emergency storage facility. It's basically, we'll go into more details about what it is, but that's what I think would be best for us. So what we need from the city is we would like to request a 100-year land lease with the city for free. And at the end of the lease, the city can have the building for free. We'll build it, we'll pay for it, and it'll be available for our community, and then it'll transition to the city in 100 years after we're all dead and gone. Hit the site plan real quick. Button? No, there's a site plan. Yeah, hit that real quick. See if that works. Ooh, cross your fingers. Come on, zoom in. Not working.
Do not have permission.
Yeah, permission
Oh,
denied.
okay. Scrap that plan. You can exit out of there for me, Jody. That little picture there shows you a parcel that the city has. It's behind the water storage area, and it's about 5.7 acres, one parcel. I have met with Ted, and we kind of zeroed in on a location directly behind the storage containers that we might be able to easily access and put the facility. So we got to check measurements and all that kind of stuff, and we'll do that once we get a feeling of which way you guys are willing to go with me on this. And if you have a better location, I'm open to it. However, I like this one because it keeps it out of sight. It's behind everybody. And technically, when I'm done with it, I could cover it up with dirt and put grass on it. That's how sturdy these things are. They can actually be reburied, and only the doorway could be in and out. I think that's pretty awesome. So, next page.
Oh, behind me.
It's behind you?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. These are some specs. I talked to the company that recommends these things, and they give me these numbers. So I've got a 100-foot diameter dome, which creates about 13,000 square feet of storage of space. Okay, it's two levels high, and yeah. Next. This gives you a diagram of some of the materials that goes into building it and how it's constructed to be as resilient as it has been.
Isn't that the fault line right up there, Joe?
Yes, and so one of the things we would do is we would have this engineered for earthquakes.
I'm just asking. I
It
think
is
that's
right.
the fault
It's
line right up
right
there.
on top of it.
Yeah.
I hear you. I totally hear you. But that's going to be a matter of adding additional rebar into our construction, and then we'll get an engineer to sign up on it. I'd like it to be able to handle a 6.5 earthquake. Unless you guys think we'll have a bigger one.
You're 7. It doesn't matter.
After 7, we're toast.
The whole mountain's coming off.
I hope not, but on those red words, those are all links to articles and videos regarding this dome surviving those types of events. Down in Southern California, a fire, there's one of these domes was on top of a hillside, and it chased the fire crew up the mountain. They hid in this dome. The fire went over the dome and down the other side, and the fire crew were safe. And there was another lady recently, her whole neighborhood burned down except for her house. And it just shows that being singed along the edge of the concrete, which concrete doesn't burn. So there you go. And then bulletproof, yeah, some yahoos shot it with a 30-06. It just scratched it. It's also ready to stop or to survive F5 tornadoes. As another example. So there's a video there as well. Those are like news articles. So that's the kind of structure. Next page. I think we got one more left. Oh, maybe 2. So we want to maintain, go back. We want to maintain a group of medical volunteers to help during disasters, which I've mentioned that to you guys in the past. Possibly establish emergency treatment center. In other words, a place where people can actually get patched and then, they go back home and recuperate at home. Collect and maintain a large surplus of donated medical supplies. And we're also getting equipment donated to us, by the way. I've got a $4,000 blood analyzing machine I got for like $100 that I'm gonna probably donate to somewhere down south. But we've got EKG machines now, kind of crazy stuff that comes available to us now because we're a nonprofit and we're focused on this area. I don't know how to use any of it, but that's what the doctors are for. Next. Food, bulk food. What I'm talking about here is basically rice, beans, and wheat, something simple. My attitude is if you did not prepare for a long-term disaster, I don't want you to starve, but you're not going to eat Mountain House. You're going to get calories that will keep you alive, but you're going to get bored of it pretty fast. But we need to have those things available to our community. We're also talking about taking on donations of people's food storage that they want to rotate out. Things like that will be added to it. So I think that's the last slide. Next slide. Oh, we basically will have a be ready because we're at such a high location and we're setting up communications with multiple other cities. By the way, Salem has asked me to be on their emergency committee. So I'm actually helping them perform a number of emergency communications drills
It's a
coming
good
up
group.
in April. They are very serious.
Yeah.
I've also, my armoring company is actually armoring the front of their police department. And they've already paid me for the deposit on that. So we're getting started on that. So we're working on helping them, meeting with police chief of Spanish Fork next because their facility is just as vulnerable as Salem's is. But we need a way of possibly reaching out and providing support to those communities because Be Ready is going to be a resource not just for Woodland Hills. We're going to continue growing and getting more resources to share beyond our city because we're kind of small. And if I got resources to go beyond us, let's help out Salem. Let's help out Elk Ridge. I've met with the Elk Ridge fire chief, Seth Waite. Great guy. Oh my gosh.
He's my cousin.
Is he? Oh, you're a very lucky guy.
He's a good guy.
So I'll be meeting with him pretty soon to help him with organizing a chapter of Be Ready in Elk Ridge and getting access to doing something similar to what we're doing here by doing once a month training classes for their community. So
Spanish Fork too. You're doing some stuff with Spanish Fork.
I will. Yeah, I'm going to meet with the chief first. And Salem, I'm working with Salem. I'll probably have to do their city council meeting too. So
Thanks, Aaron.
that's what I'm doing.
So I just have a couple of questions. So in terms of the transaction, the really only, and I don't mean this pejoratively, but the only benefit to the city in exchange for the lease is taking possession of the building in 100 years. Is that correct? Or is that, I mean, I get, obviously there are some benefits of having the organization as a resource on site, but
Yeah.
I'm just wanting to make sure transactionally, that I understand sort of the
Correct.
fence line of
Yes, it
what
would,
is
that,
envisioned.
and that's why I wanted to take a piece of property that the city wasn't going to use. It's out of sight, out of the way. It's something that wouldn't interfere with anything that you're doing. And then everything we offer is to help support all of our citizens here. And then if we can reach out further. But it starts here first.
And then, Ted, I'm not familiar enough with that parcel, but I guess a couple of questions that I have with regard to that would be, is this providing access to what would otherwise be a secure site concerning our water? I mean, would it have to be accessed through, the fenced off area that houses the well and that critical infrastructure? And if not, do we have any vision for the parcel of land that is being proposed for its use?
So this specific parcel of land sits just kind of up above the hill where the tanks are. Kind of goes uphill right there, and I think that the pitch is to put it right into the hill right there, kind of back behind it, kind of between where the green tanks are and the concrete tank, kind of between there, and put it back in the hill. So in effect, yes, it is up there with our water system, our well and our water tank. It may be something where we've got two accesses to that site right now. I don't know if we block off one. The other thing we looked at too was, because eventually we're going to need to build another tank. So how do we leave space to make sure we've got space for another tank? That we looked at when he came into the office and talked about kind of how would this be located up there. But yeah, so we'd have to look at some security things with particular to the water tank and the well, but maybe a fencing thing or something like that.
All right, and I understand this is just high level. I mean, obviously,
very
the
high
devil
level.
would be in the details, and so
That if the thumb is kind of pointing towards the upwards area, then yes, we'll go start spending more resources and time to nail down a secure entrance and protecting the city's assets, mitigating those risks.
okay.
So I'm happy to work on that if you guys are.
We've just gone to a fair amount of effort to secure that site, and so, it is one of those things where I would be a little bit uneasy about.
I'm glad you did.
Yeah.
I'm glad you guys did. So
Okay, thanks, Ted.
that's a very, well, in preparedness world, that water tank is extremely valuable to our community.
Yeah.
And I want to make sure it's safe too.
All right, does anybody else have any questions for Aaron?
Well, thank you for helping our city to be prepared. I mean, we just talked about, with our fire department and all of the things that we need to spend to keep them safe and what they're doing. And we would never have the money to get all of these supplies, et cetera, on our own or pay for this building. We'd never be able to do that. And so having some of our residents who have training in this type of thing, the doctors and nurses that are either here currently working or retired, being willing to assist if our EMS and our fire department, if needed, I think it's a great opportunity for us to, because we know that there are probably more disasters coming, and to showcase that we're prepared, I think might also help Ted when he's filling out grants or things, to be able to say, yeah, we have this in our city. It maybe add to his credibility of being able to get other resources that we would normally pay for.
But I think it's worth emphasizing, though, that this is not a city project.
Oh,
All
yeah.
you're looking from us or looking for from us is the lease, right? I mean,
Yes.
Yeah.
it's not a city operation. It's not something that,
If the city ever wanted to buy it, that would switch over. But I didn't foresee the city wanting to dedicate, $750,000 to $1 million to build this. Now, I do have a lot of experience in raising capital, just so that you know. Okay, I've done, I came from the banking industry 20 years and raised millions of dollars. I expect I'll have challenges, but I also look at challenges as opportunities to I actually have fun with challenges.
I believe it.
Get to know me better, the bigger the challenge. I'm a
And that's
masochist.
what, I guess that's what I was saying, is it's not a city project, but it is a city partner in terms of, just like when our residents clear their brush, that's not a city project, but it adds to the credibility when Ted goes to put out a grant to say, our residents are doing this. And I think this is something similar, that is, our residents are doing this to help us prepare for disaster comes along, and it adds something for Ted to put on his numbers or whatever they ask. You know, what are your residents doing? I get that question quite a bit. There's quite a bit of legislation going on right now with wildland interface ordinances, and a lot of times they're whining about how residents who live in foothills don't take care of their land. And I can easily put out what we've been doing for a decade, and they go, wow, really? And I say, and our fire chief and our residents work together. We're always clearing brush. We do this chipping. You know, it adds to the credibility. And I think this kind of a project, although not city funded or city run, just it would be a good partnership to have. And just and this overall high view, we have not seen details, so I'm not voting for. I'm just
Nothing to
saying
vote for yet.
I could see that it could be really something beneficial.
So next steps would be, I'll look forward to hearing back from you guys after you guys have a chance to chow and chew on it.
Okay.
Feel free to call me, ask me any questions. I can come back and give you guys more details if I can.
And so what would your next step be? So let's just say that we on a high level said, you know what, this is worth taking that, because I don't think anybody here would want you to invest money on something that ultimately has little chance of survival. And so I think I think it'd be better to talk, if the answer is no, I think it'd just be way better to tell you no early on than to sort of string you along and then tell you no after. I think that,
Yeah, if there's a legitimate concern that I can't overcome, yes, a quick no is better than a long no. Okay, absolutely. I'll go talk to another city.
right.
Right.
But your next step in terms of your investment in it, I would just,
Usually it's going to be, we have to survey the property and make sure where we can actually put the facility.
okay.
And so there'll be some expenses, probably $3,000 or $4,000 on survey expenses. After that, it'll be an architect to have them actually draw up the plans so I can actually put together a full presentation, cost breakdown, description of materials for investors, or I should say donors,
Right.
to have them look at that full picture so they know that if I ask for $720,000, it's enough to actually do the job.
Okay. That's
Okay.
helpful.
All right.
Anything else for Aaron?
Thank you.
Yeah, I got a couple of things. Just I don't know if you say concerns, but there, a couple of items to bring up. One, to be honest, in an earthquake and a fire, those emergencies, this would be, in my opinion, a really poor positioning for this. And when you first started, I was definitely against it until you kind of sold me a little bit when you said bury it, because this is not something I think our residents are going to want to see on the mountain. It's bad enough having our tanks up there, so the burying idea is a that actually turned me a little bit around on that. We get a lot of complaints just for some of the things that we already have. So, but I think the position, unfortunately, is a really bad spot. In the case of the two things that we're going to see the most in a fire, that will be coming down the mountain or up the mountain, and an earthquake, because it's going to likely lose access to this and could be extremely difficult to get to in those two situations. And I wonder if you had put any thought into that. I like the idea of the preparedness part of it. I think it's fantastic, but I just wonder if positioning of this is not the best for what you're trying to do.
Fair enough, Brian. Can I propose that we look at as many other potential locations in the city that might meet the needs of of this building, and we can still bury it and conceal it. If there's a ravine area that we can excavate a ravine and just throw extra dirt on top of it when we're
I'll
done.
call you with one of my ideas.
Well, let's talk about it
Well,
offline.
there's a prime spot, but we'd have to look at it.
Sure.
Um,
So I am open to changing locations, guys. I was just trying to pick a place that was out of sight and out of the way.
Sure.
I just don't want all that effort and all that work to go into something that we could likely not have access to in an emergency when we need it. That's my fear. So I'd love to look at other locations. If Doral has something, I think that would behoove us to look more into this. I like the idea of having that preparedness for the community. I think it's a fantastic thing, and I think you've done some fantastic work already. And this is, like you said, it's definitely a major thing. So I applaud what you've done so far, and I applaud the ideas that you've got going forward. I just want to make sure that if we do this, that it's in that it's going to be usable. I don't want to have any hurdles.
Okay.
Okay, thanks, Brian.
Thanks, Brian.
yeah, thanks, Aaron.
Anything
Yeah,
else
sure.
then? All right. Thanks, Aaron.
You bet.
I
Thanks,
appreciate your
Aaron.
time. Okay, item 4, resolution 2025-06, appointment to the Parks, Trails, and Recreation Committee. Brian, is that going to be you, or is that you, Sherry? Sherry, I'm not sure if you're back or.
So it can be me. Again, we talked about this last time. I had a mistake in who I asked to or who we asked to if they wanted to stay on the board, and Michelle Crump has agreed to stay on the Park Trails and Rec Committee, not board, but committee. And so that is something that we're proposing to vote on tonight.
Great. Anybody have any questions or comments on that? Okay, thanks, Brian. Item 5, the Payson Sewer Agreement. Ed?
I've really marked this one up.
Yeah, this is kind of a crappy deal, but we'll get through it. So this was just quickly, this is something that we have to vote on for the mayor to sign to get back to Payson. So we've had an agreement with Payson since they have taken our sewer. So our sewer system goes into a trunk line down 11200, then goes down to Payson, and they treat it for us. So we've had an agreement in place with them for years to treat our sewer water. It was time to kind of update that agreement. 2 things that were the major updates. We will be taking over the maintenance of the sewer system, and Payson had a small maintenance fee included with their cost to us for per connection. So we had to review that. And the second item was that the agreement limited us to a certain development for growth of how many more connections we could add to the sewer system. So generally what we did is we updated the agreement to remove that small maintenance fee, but the cost although the cost is coming down, it didn't go down as far as just removing the maintenance fee, because over time their prices increased. So there was some adjustment for that. In effect, they're charging us, our residents, the same thing that they're charging their residents. So the overall cost is down. We were paying $67.25 to Payson per connection. This will be now, I think it was 63.60. So it comes down a little bit per connection. So that was the one update. And the other one was we changed the number of connections from that one specific development to no more than 1,500 connections citywide, which is going to be probably more than we will be able to accommodate in the city. So that basically means our entire city.
And I actually think that's a really important change that we're making,
Yeah.
because that's something that it was, I think, a little bit, and I know there were probably reasons as to why it was narrowed down in the first place. But I think this is better
Yeah.
for us as a city longer term.
Other than that, none of the other terms of the contract have changed since our original contract with them.
Yes, we take over the maintenance and then the number of connections.
Yeah.
One of the things, if I can ask a couple of
Yeah,
questions.
please.
One of the things I noticed that I didn't know before is that we own all of the infrastructure of that's in our city.
We
So
do.
that's pretty good.
Didn't we own it before though?
Mhm.
Yeah, we've always owned it.
And as you said, they won't increase our rates any more than they will increase the rates to their own citizens. That's
Right.
important.
Anytime they need to make adjustments, we'll have to review ours. It's based on a base rate plus a usage. And so I went through and calculated, in effect, our winter water usage because we don't send all our summer water usage down to sewer. It's only indoor use, which is generally in the winter. So I went through and calculated that average winter water use, and that's how we came up with that cost.
Mm.
It's more than I thought it was too. Thousands of gallons,
Yeah, our average is about 7,000 gallons
Yeah.
for indoor
But
water per
just for
month.
the record, we're not going to charge the same rate because we've got maintenance fees and
Right.
savings and repair and replacement. So anybody listening, future city recordings, it's not going to be the same cost as Payson City.
Yeah, and that's a good point, Chris. So this is just this cost in here. It's just the cost for Payson to treat the water. We still have on top of that, the city, we have to operate and maintain the system now where Payson used to, and we have to put away money for replacement costs because
Those
these
lines take maintenance. Yeah.
they take maintenance and they're eventually going to have to be replaced periodically. And so we need to start socking money away for maintenance and replacement.
So with all of that, then we will have to change our fee schedule based on whatever numbers you come up with for maintenance, replacement, and
Which is
maintenance
already in there. We already have that
operation.
number in
Oh,
there.
So we already have that in there.
That's already
And
in our sewer fee.
okay, and then if they increase their treatment fee, then we'll come back and do another fee schedule update.
Yeah. And I don't know if we'll do the contract update because the contract may have said it'll be periodically adjusted, but we would have to change our fee.
Anything else?
Ted, are we only responsible for maintenance in Woodland Hills City, or do we have part of 11200 that we are responsible to maintain?
Just the sewer in Woodland Hills City. Yeah.
Okay.
There's a main trunk line that runs down 11200 that both us and Elk Ridge dump into. And that's Payson, maintained by Payson, owned and maintained by Payson.
Okay, thank you.
In fact, they tried to push it off on us, but we said, not yet, not right now. And just for comparison, this is pretty similar to what Elk Ridge, same thing they're paying. They pay Payson the same costs, and their internal city costs are about the same as ours. So it's fairly comparable.
Wayne had a question?
There is part of the city that crosses over
Wayne.
1121. So just keep that in mind.
All right. So Wayne
Woodland
just said that
Shadows.
there's a part of the city that is across.
Are they on septic?
Shadow Ridge, yeah,
They're on septic, aren't they?
I think so. Because that's downhill from
Right,
11200.
right.
Just that one little thing that goes
Yeah.
on the other side.
Well, the only thing that's on that line is the church, right?
That's
That's
on,
coming up 11200.
yeah, and us, yeah. All of our Summit Creek connects into there. So most of all of our sewer heads down
From
Summit Creek.
Drive to up 11200.
Oh, it's the church, yeah.
It's just the church, right?
Right.
Okay.
Churches.
Yeah, you're right. We
Both
do
churches.
connect,
Both
yeah.
churches.
Yeah, Both
Yeah.
churches, yep. You're right.
Okay. Well, if there's no other questions, if there are no other questions, we'll move on. Thanks, Ted. All right, Chris, the Comcast franchise agreement.
There's really not much to say here. This is, I've been told that these agreements, Comcast has the right to come into the city and lay their cable down following the agreement that you guys have been given, which our attorneys have reviewed, and they have told us that it is in line with what state statute allows. We do receive franchise tax from this if should anybody connect to it. It's about 6%. And so from my understanding with our city attorneys, this is pretty boilerplate. I'm been wanting to ask the question of why they want to come in and compete with fiber, but I have not done that. But Comcast is a large company, and maybe they're trying to make a play.
And if they're putting it in, then do they go in, just have to put it in through the conduit that we already have underground, or would they have to dig up all the ground and then have our residents say, they didn't replace it the way it was before? Or how does that work? Because we did put the conduit in, which the city owns. So, and we offered it to them when we had the line, when we had the trenches open, and they chose not to. So how does that work?
So I think
Actually do it?
I think though we had the trenches open, but the way the fiber was run was not through conduits as per se. There was some conduit that SESD has laid, but they just took those big spools and zipped that line right through
Okay.
most of the city. The fiber did, so they're gonna have to open up their own trenches, just like um, the gas company or the telephone company would have to do, or even our fiber company, and have at it.
And how will we make sure that they're not going to be digging up all the other stuff that's already in there and having a disruption of service of everything else
they
that's in the
might.
same trenches?
They might, but they'll fix it.
Yeah,
Same way we
yeah,
would.
they'll
So-
make things. They'll keep the fire department busy. They'll hit phone lines. They'll hit fiber lines. It's just the nature of it. But they will have to file plans with our city engineer or with Ted, and then it will have to be inspected, and they'll have to pay fees, and they'll have to do all that.
And have to replace the road and all of that, and our residents will be aware that this is what's going on, etc. Okay.
So when I read through this, there's some things I liked.
Yeah.
If our stuff's underground, their stuff has to be underground.
Yeah.
I like that. That's in here.
Yeah. I like that part.
They will give us 5% of their annual gross. I think he
Yeah.
said, Chris
I
said
just was-
something about that.
Because
When I was
Um,
reading through
why?
it, right, I was reading through it too and kind of going,
Why? And
This-
then I'm like, well,
The only advantage this might have over fiber is it includes 85 channels of TV.
yeah, it's the TV
Uh,
part that people like to get the direct TV and
yeah.
all of that.
So it's an okay contract.
I might, well, my husband's asleep, so, but we could maybe get direct TV. If it has enough sports on it, right? But I was just kind of wondering that whole thing. It just seems like they didn't want to do it before, but now that they see how much the take rate was for fiber, maybe it really is for their bundling purposes.
Yeah, I don't have an answer for that. I know Summit Creek is a Comcast, that their ISP.
I thought it was Centricom.
It's Centricom.
Oh, it
Yeah.
is. I
Yep.
stand corrected. Okay, well,
Yeah.
I come back to, I don't know why they made the decision
Yeah.
to time it the way they did. Okay,
So my understanding too is that they will probably be going to Summit Creek. So do we need to prepare those folks over there that they're going to be having cable laid and their roads ripped up and their yards?
Isn't that on the company to let them know as an HOA, or are they,
Yeah.
or they go through the city? I mean, who's the contract end up being with? Is it with,
The HOA.
My understanding was that the Summit Creek has been under the impression that only Centricom is allowed to bury these kind of communication lines within their city. And I'm not sure that that is.
area? Because it's still within our city. So the state law would say that they could go anywhere in city boundaries would be the statute, right? But they would probably have to work with their HOA. I don't know.
That I'm not sure, but I just want to make sure that if they're going to dig up Summit Creek, that those people are well aware of it.
Because state statute trumps HOA.
Just a reminder too, that they're dealing with private roads over there and private right of way. So
Except for Summit Creek Drive.
correct. And are they going to be soliciting? Are they going door to door to solicit people to sign up? So I think there's a lot of things in there that we need to get understandings of as this goes forward. So just bringing that
Whatever
up, Chris.
contract ends up coming through, because they would have to contract with the city for the permitting and whatnot. Even though they have the right to do it, they still have to get the permits from the city.
right, no, and I don't see any issue with that. I mean, as far as it catching Summit Creek by surprise, I mean, it doesn't seem like, I mean, I don't know, it might not come up. Any utility running through Summit Creek would be subject to the same sort of demands right, Ted? I mean, this is no different than if SESD wanted to run a line up Summit Creek Drive or, who's the gas company now? They change hands a lot.
Yeah, I mean, we get utility companies in there all the time digging up roads, doing utilities. Gas company does a lot for homes. So it's an excavation permit. We require them to permit with the city, and they have to submit plans to us, traffic control plans, and then they pay a fee for the excavation permit. So that's digging the right of way.
Do we permit on the private roads though?
That would be up to something. We don't do anything
Okay.
with private roads.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anything that's a public road. We don't deal with private.
Hey, Jody, that mic Ted's using sounds pretty bad. I don't know if it's going out or dead or
Might
old.
be- Maybe he's going out or dead.
Give that one
The
back.
other thing, Ted, if I remember right, I think Don Meekum ran a bunch of conduit through Summit Creek, and that might help. This isn't their first rodeo. They've been doing this for years and years and years, but that's the contract. It seems pretty boilerplate. I'm not sure, even if you guys voted against it, that would hold up. Is my understanding. I may or maybe we've heard something else, but
Two.
Okay, anybody have any comments or questions?
Just that, I mean, this is the agreement, so it will come to you and the mayor, and you'll be working with them on getting the contract signed, and then as it goes forward, I guess you would put something in the newsletter so residents would know they're digging on this street on this day, so that people would be aware of what's being dug up.
I don't know. I mean, we don't do that for other utility installs. I don't know that we need to start here.
If we did
yeah, I
that,
like the idea of Comcast taking care of that.
But we don't
so
dig up the whole state, the whole city at this, very often.
I think we just treat like any other utility company.
Okay.
I think we would just treat this like any other utility company. Enbridge, we get a lot of requests from them to do this. SESD or whoever it might be. It's a utility company, and we'll go forward like a utility company.
All right. Thank you, Chris. And back to you, Chris. Large purchase requests, or maybe that's you, Ted. I don't know. Okay.
Ted's in there. He can go look at Janet and talk to her.
Is it anything in addition to the CBA that we talked about earlier? Do we have other purchases?
I think you got, the SCBA is the only thing that I had on the list for large purchase this time. So
Say,
I saved the
Chris,
rest for next
You
time.
can only say that because you're really far away.
Well, he said this time. You caught that, right?
I know.
This time, I've got
I
more
don't know
coming.
why we can't sometime just, go and have a city council meeting with with Chris. And then
I think you should.
instead of just always having to be online, we could just meet you in person, and it would be really nice.
That's a great idea.
Budget retreat would
A
be an
budget
actual
retreat.
retreat.
A budget retreat, yes,
We
that's
need a
a
lot
great
Eat that fire.
idea.
Mary Ann could cook us.
Yes.
Yeah. I'll let her know, Doral.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
So at this point, just because we're talking about large purchases, I think I could throw in there some sales that we just made.
please do.
We listed a number of items. There's still a couple out, and I've got a couple more to post. But as of today, we've sold $19,140.25 worth of equipment. Some of that's already been paid for. And there are some more things that I've been asked to post. I just have been a little swamped and not able to get to them yet. But I thought this was a good point to actually put that in. Those auctions closed today, and I've got a couple more that'll close tomorrow. Really, really small ones, and then a few more to post. But nearly $20,000 in auction sales.
Thanks,
Will
Brian.
you
Did the
guys
metal plate
at
sell?
my next city council when I come with my next request?
No,
Just have
no,
this 19,000.
This equipment was specifically put up for sale for some purpose. I told you, though. I am a net zero.
The $100.
I told you I'm a net zero employee. We'll find ways to make money to spend money.
Yeah, right.
Can you tell us what those items were, Brian? Some of the bigger ones?
yes, I can. So the old four-wheeler sold. Actually, I was bidding on that personally, and I got outbid at the very end. So I lost that one at just over $3,000. The salt conveyor sold for $1,175. We got all the plate steel that's downstairs. There's some half-inch plate, three-quarter-inch plate, and 1-inch plates that are all down there that we don't need anymore. Those all sold. The hydraulic conveyor sold. The old lawnmower sold. And the street sweeper sold. We actually got $7,100 for that the old street sweeper, so that Ted can actually buy the sweeper unit for the loader. Ted, that one was allotted for the loader for sure.
Well, and it's important that we have that sweeper for whatever, I mean, that's part of
Well,
our line.
It'd be nice to have one that actually worked
Yep.
Or that
Well,
stopped.
One that actually drove up the street.
up the street. Exactly. Yeah. So
That was pulled by the sweeper. Is that?
Oh,
wasn't
no,
that its,
that's, no, you can't do up and sweeping action at the same time.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, you can go up the street without sweeping action. That'll go
The
fine.
sweeper is the brake.
It,
Yeah. Well,
it's an amazing piece of machinery.
good save.
It's
Good
a,
save.
it's a good
was
thing for
worth-
someone else to have, and we're
worth
happy
81
to
of
help them.
and
It's
I'm also going to invite all the council members and the mayor to take a trip downstairs, especially after we get this stuff gone. See what Toby's done down there. I actually had a call with Craig Northup yesterday, and he says, "Man, I'm liking going up there, and I'm able to do work in there." Toby has done a fantastic job. Ted, please tell him that it looks fantastic, and I'd love for the rest of the council to go down and take a look at what he's done in the city building downstairs. The man's done a fantastic job under the leadership of Ted.
Yeah. Oh, well said. Thank you. Okay. Why don't we move on to item 8, department reports? Ted, A and B, Public Works Fire Department.
Yeah, I really have nothing to report unless they got started on some of our work in the well today. Some of those upgrades we've been waiting on. They're getting started on some of the fabrication. So that'll be happening over the next 3 or 4 months, getting that well finished up as they get parts in. So we ordered the fuel tank for it, and it's really all I got in Public Works.
And it's moving along. I mean, none of these things ever go according to the perfect plan, but it's moving forward.
Yeah. Our biggest hang up was the control panel,
Little thingy thing.
the main distribution panel. Yeah, MDP. I
You
couldn't think
gotta
of the name
call
for
it
a minute.
anything.
Yeah,
Wouldn't have
yeah.
mattered.
So that had like a 16-week lead time to get that ordered, and we didn't know it until we got going on the project. So there's been and that's one of the things that has to happen fairly early on. So that's kind of been waiting for that, but they're working on getting some of just the minor stuff. We had some fabricated steel work that need to be done. They worked on that today, and they're working on some of the stuff they can do, but waiting for that panel to come in. So
Yeah.
this will continue on through probably
Any-
June.
Any generator update, or is it still coming?
Well, the generator's there.
I mean,
Up
any
at the well?
closer- Any closer at operational?
No, that won't be hooked up until they get this main distribution panel. That's one of the things that have to come. We did order the fuel tank for today. That you council approved a little while ago. The big fuel tank's going to sit outside, and so we don't use ones downstairs. And then we just have to figure out what to do with those. But Salem's well is down right now. Maple Canyon. That's a well that we share 40% of, and it's been having a lot of cloudy water issues lately. If residents ask, we haven't been using that water since July.
We only use it in the summer when we have
Yeah.
load for it, right?
Which
But
we may
somebody
change
did
that
ask
a
me
little
how they
bit.
change the taste of their water, and I just told them.
It's not, yes, the same well. I mean, we've been on the Broad Hollow well since July. We were on that one for 2 weeks in end of June, 1st of July. Other than that, we've been on our well. So our water quality hasn't changed. Hasn't been for the last 8 years. However, they've had some issues with that well, so they took it down. There will be responsible for whatever they find wrong with it. They tore it down, took the pump out today, and yesterday, and they sent the camera crew up there today. They're going to camera it and see if they can find issues with it. Why are they against cloudy water? If it does need to be repaired, and even the cameraing cost, we're going to be responsible for 40% of that cost. So that'll be a cost that'll be coming our way. They don't know how long they'll be down until they figure out what's wrong with it. So we've only got our one well right now. So just keep that well in your prayers at night, would you?
Amen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's
All
really
right.
all I got.
Okay, and for fire, I mean, we've already talked quite a bit about.
Talked quite a bit
fires.
about fire. Really no updates there. The SEABA was the big one, and we're just cruising along. Our appreciation dinner is coming up on March
March 13th.
13th for those of you that are available to come to the appreciation dinner.
It'll be here.
Yeah, like we had last year. It'll be
Thursday
here at the
night.
city center. Have it catered.
Yeah, delicious.
Yeah, same groups catering it.
Okay, great. Thank you. Wayne?
Thursday night.
I'm just gonna put it.
Yeah.
I spent most of my time recently about redoing some of our city ordinances and looking at them. Some of them, a couple of them are quite poorly written, not as specific and as they need to be. You didn't pass any of them, so it's one of the council was years ago that passed them. But anyway, I'm
Good
working
save.
on those. Pardon?
Good save.
Yeah,
Well,
that's
probably
right.
me.
So
We're gonna name names.
we're having planning commission meeting next week, and we'll be talking about them there. Some of them are part of a public hearing that we'll be having that night as well. And so probably, I don't know if they'll be ready to come to you on the fourth Tuesday of this month, but certainly within the next month or so, we'll be coming back to you with some recommended changes on some of our ordinances. Just a reminder too, a number of months ago, the proposed ordinance on short-term rentals was tabled. And I know some of you had some ideas on that. I've yet to see any of those ideas. We've had one recent inquiry about somebody who wants to have a short-term rental. So I'm open to any of your thoughts.
I
and
think
so
we
forth
should
on
wait
that.
until after the legislative session. They're working on some things too, and which might then have us to change it again.
Okay, we
So
can
we
easily
might-
do that. I
yeah.
just want to remind
We
you
just
all.
might want to wait. There are other cities that have as no zoning for short-term rentals, except for ADUs. As a regular housing option. But most of those would be used for long-term rental rather than short-term. But that is, we don't have to have them according to everyone I've talked to. Some places will say it's only in a certain area. People are looking at short-term rentals a little bit more as it comes, at least legislative session is looking at it as they're working up to the potential for during the Olympics. So there are some long-term things that they're looking at, but there's also some short-term because short-term rentals are taking away a lot of the housing options for the long-term rentals and or people buying homes for use. And so there's been this kind of clash on, do we really need them in places that are non-tourist spots? Like St. George needs them, Park City needs them, Moab might need them, but they've also noticed that it's taken away from regular people having a home to live in.
There's
So
way too many in St. George.
there's
too.
there's a whole bunch, and so that's what the legislature is trying to balance on. Where's the local control in saying no, we don't want them in our city because we need them for regular people to live in. So,
Okay, fine enough. Again, just a reminder to y'all. So open to any thoughts or suggestions that you might have along the way with things that need to be changed, ordinances and whatnot. Doors open to you always. So thank you.
Thanks, Wayne.
Well, as it stands right now, they're allowed. We don't have any ordinance saying they're not. Just as a point to make Wayne's, comment a little more relevant that if someone wants it, there's nothing we can do to stop them at this point, and we can't regulate it in any way whatsoever.
But we can if we choose to. We
Yes,
can.
but right now, as of right now, they can have a short-term rental and don't even have to tell us, other than a business license.
Yeah. And
Right
I-
now, we don't, we're adding that requirement to have a business license for any rental that somebody's going to have in the city.
Okay, so they don't even have to have a license at this point. So,
But it
so
can,
anybody can do it as much as they want to.
well, and we can change it to be that's, if they're using it continually, that it would be a commercial property rather than a residential property, which we would get 100% tax on. So
All of
There's
those
things
things
that we can
are,
do
yes,
and all
but we don't
things
have any regulation as of right now. That's why
that-
Wayne's bringing it up.
to allow legislature
Talk over each other.
changes some stuff so that we make sure our ordinance is written that if you're using it 100% of the time as a short-term rental or 90% or whatever it is, like St. George people do, that it would be a commercial. And our ordinances do prevent some commercial property. And so there could be an argument both ways on that is all I'm saying.
Okay.
Well, in the future, right now, there is no argument because the state legislature hasn't done anything. So I'm just making the point that we have no regulation on it right now.
Okay, thanks. All right, moving on to item 9, reports. So we had our SESD meeting today. The only thing I was going to mention, Jody, they brought up the scholarship, the UAMP scholarship again. Anybody of you have any high school seniors or know any high school seniors that are looking for a $2,500 scholarship? There to date have been no applicants, so it's on our website. Maybe we could just
Yeah, and I
post
put it,
that.
well, I put a full page.
Yeah,
on
no, we
it.
did it before, and the deadline to apply is February 28th, but they mentioned today that nobody's applied, and so it'd be a shame to not let someone take advantage of that.
Okay.
Well,
Never mind. It's stupid. Go ahead. I want to apply.
yeah, well, I mean, I'd buy that
Me
you're a high
too.
school senior.
I'm a senior, you're a
Hey,
senior. Let's
hey.
let's apply. Coral.
Does it require high school?
You know what? The fine print, I really can't speak
See?
to,
Acts
but
like a high school senior.
That-
Okay,
that
right?
works.
either act like a
That
high
works.
school senior or
I'm true it all
looks
the
like a
time.
senior.
Trouble. Okay, thanks.
Right there.
I'll
All
get
right.
my name in.
And then Mag and Cog, I actually thought our meeting was last Thursday, but it's this Thursday, so nothing to report there. Councilmember Hilliard.
Nothing too new there. I do know that right now this is the slowest part of the transfer season's year. So if you have anything you want to take, now's a great time.
No lines, huh?
No, well, there's usually never lines because they
It's
move so
great.
well.
It's great.
But
I'm a
yeah,
freak-
now's a great time to
A
take your
frequent
junk
user.
to the transfer station. So
You got me hooked.
Just
It's a great
unbury
place.
it from the snow and what's out there.
just
right?
pull it out of your basement, and it's not in the snow.
Yeah. Well, we had 1-800 Got Junk come to our house last night. $800 is what they were going to charge me to haul stuff away.
All your Kansas
Yeah,
City
I-
stuff.
A
I-
huh?
transfer station
Chiefs
is
paraphernalia.
like $15 a ton. So if you're under a ton, it's $15.
Yeah. No,
So-
I couldn't believe how expensive it was. So
Much
it's
better option is the transfer station
Yeah.
over
Amen.
commercial entities. And if you need a dumpster as well, calling the transfer station is a better choice. Now they can't advertise that service, but I sure can.
Oh.
So a
Um,
resident could say, hey, we're cleaning out a bunch of stuff. Can
For
we
sure.
get a dumpster delivered? And then
So if
they
you
pick it
call
up.
like a normal dumpster company, they will be far more expensive
Oh,
than the
good to
transfer
know.
station because the transfer station only charges you a pickup and a drop off, which is very minimal, and then tonnage. So
and that's not like a secret. That is
that's not a secret.
wow. Oh,
but they
that's
just
really
can't
good to know.
advertise. So
Oh, okay.
but
Can we or should we?
Yeah, we can.
Should
Yeah.
we put that? I mean, that would actually be
That
something.
is cool to know. Yeah.
Schedule. I've used it a couple times
Oh, is it?
myself and paid for it, and
It's substantially cheaper.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, I
Don't tell my wife.
Sure.
That's what I use when I'm building homes also because I'll save my clients
Nice. Okay.
thousands
That's a
of
great
dollars.
idea.
Thank you.
And can you rent it for a particular length of time? Like when you use it for building or
So
a
typically
remodel,
it's
right?
like 2
People
weeks.
remodel.
After 2 weeks, then there's like a $50 a week charge, just because they have to, make money off of them to
Right.
a degree, and people just can't store them on their property without being, incurring costs. But typically it's shorter than that, unless you're building a home or something.
Right.
So
But that's a great idea for a quick remodel, right?
yeah,
And not
much-
charging
much
getting
better way to
all
go.
the other stuff.
Yeah, no, that's great information.
That's it for me.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Hutchings.
Okay, so the Mount Nebo met, the Nebo Water Agency. I actually left my notebook at the plant. There are a number of things that are going through the legislature right now. I've got took a lot of notes on that. I will be typing that up and sending it out to council members so you can see it. They didn't actually take any positions on anything, but I want you to see it, and I want to sit down with Ted on some of these so that if we feel that they're not in our best interest, that I'll reach out to everybody to contact.
I'd like to just send me the numbers. I can also just add to it on the league stance on those same water bills. So
Yeah, so and so this is where it's going to be a little bit different, and Woodland Hills isn't necessarily going to fall in line with the league, because the league is looking at all these cities, and then there's a lot of agricultural stuff and things like that. But I don't know that we're going to fall in line with what the league's views are, just because the league is looking at bigger cities and other things like that. So I think we need to look at these personally. You're welcome to check what the league is pushing on them. But I think that we need to kind of look at these ourselves, and I want to sit down with Ted when I'm back in town and go through these. Because there are some things out there that don't necessarily align with what us as Woodland Hills is going to benefit us. So I'll get that out to everybody. I'll try to get that out this week. And then the Sumva met, South Valley met, but I actually had to leave right after, leave the Mount Nebo early because I had to catch a plane, and they haven't posted the minutes yet. So I don't have an update for South Valley Water.
All right, thanks, Brian. Councilmember Kinnison.
All right, 911 dispatch. I want y'all to know I take a lot of notes each month at this meeting. And Ben, you specifically, I'll send them to you if you want to hear what's going on.
Please, yes.
That is the coolest group. This time they hired 4 new people. A couple of those were from other dispatch centers, which is good because they come in trained. They're buying, and we've discussed this for 2 months now, a new AI system that will help analyze and monitor 911 calls. Right now, they evaluate about 5% of their calls. This will evaluate and monitor and suggest things because it's AI on 100% of their calls. So it's software. I'm a software developer, so I always like to see software being purchased. Anyway, it's a worthwhile purchase, and they're going to go ahead with that.
So you say the software, so if somebody calls or texts in, the software can detect what level of emergency
it follows along every part of the way. It first of all secures it more. It gives the leaders at dispatch notifications when calls they go too long or they're not handled correctly. Anyway, it's got a lot of smarts.
Just as assistance then.
There's 2 other cities in our county that use it and they love it. So
that's great.
So that's coming up. It's called Comms Coach, if you ever care.
Comms Coach.
I'm sure, Ben, you want to make a note of that.
Done. Comms.
So, and that's all I have.
All right. Thank you, Doral. Councilmember Lunt.
There's nothing on there. So
No, so
Yeah.
do I need to say anything?
you just have to sit there quietly.
No.
Lack of volunteers?
I always just whatever we're working on. But we did our little history project.
Ooh,
We did
cool.
one meeting.
Cool.
And we have, I'm looking at my outline, my notes. We have an outline for content. Glenn Anderson, you know, he's a professional and what he does. And so he kind of gave us an outline of ideas of how we should do it. And so, and then we have a list of topics. So what we're going to do is have a group of maybe like 20 people, and we're going to have set questions, and we're going to ask them all the same basic questions on certain topics, and then you can splice kind of in all the answers depending on which one, you know, ones are good or which one. So we thought about like beginnings, so like the first roads, first water tanks, first house, first fire department, all of those.
Cool.
And then another topic would be infrastructure, just how it came to be, why, and like a lot of the challenges. So like the city center, mail, garbage, snow removal, natural gas, because we had propane up here for
Mhm.
years.
Yeah.
So just kind of talking about those things, water, and then hazards. And I love it. Wildlife, we decided that wildlife was included in the hazards. So wildlife, avalanche, mudslide, we had a mudslide, and then the fire. And then a little section on the government development, maybe some of the controversies and some of the accomplishments.
Love it.
And then the celebrations. We thought it'd be fun to do a history of the celebrations, what they are and how they came to be.
One really good person for that is Joyce Terry.
She's on the list.
Yep.
I have a
She is
huge
so,
list of
she has
people.
a ton of stuff about all, because she used to be over all the, most of all of that.
And then I have 3 possible questions so far and that we really liked, but one of them was how did you end up in Woodland Hills? Because I feel like a lot of people have a story.
We all do.
And then what community things have you been involved in? Basically, how have you contributed to the community? And then we thought kind of the wrap up, because Glenn said you really need to have a good wrap up question. So we thought the good wrap up could be, what do you love about living here? To kind of end. And then I have a whole list of people, and I've talked to several people, and that are all on board. Devana is on board. Even Sharon Wright is on board. She may even be on the committee and help with the project.
Great.
So we're going to reach out to her. But all these people have so much value to add, and so super excited. But I have a huge list of people.
Who just moved but she lived here forever, was Carol Malin. She's in her 90s, but she lived here a really long time. And so, and she's still sharp as tack, but she couldn't do her snow and everything. So, but she would still probably be available by phone.
Okay, I'll add her to the list because I have some notes on my phone too, and I'm,
Just-
tracking it
Just
all.
a quick update. I talked to Jeff Anderson, and he, a month before I talked to him, had already started writing a history.
Oh,
So
I love it. They're going
he's-
to reach out to
He's
him.
he would love to hear from you. I told him you would call back.
So Lori and Wendy are going to reach out and decide like what people they want to ask, what questions, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
what topics.
He'd be good.
And so they're gonna do that. And I actually did minutes, and I actually put his phone number in the minutes so they could reach out to him, because none of them knew his phone number. They were excited to talk to him. So if you talk to them, just tell them they will be reaching out.
Okay.
And we have a
That'll be great.
timeline too. We have like a deadline. We want all the interviews done by May, so that Glenn has time to edit it all and put it together and decide if we need something more. You know, like we might kind of get it all together and see there's like something missing. And so he wanted it to be done plenty early. Plus the summertime, everyone goes on vacations and it gets hard. So we're trying to get this done in the spring.
Well, that's a very cool project. I'm
Yeah,
glad
I'm
to
And
see
I
it
don't know
taking
why
shape.
I signed up for it.
I
It'll
love
be a
it.
big one, but I'm super excited.
Be really great.
Directorial credit, right? Janet
Yeah,
Lunt.
Produced by.
I
Yeah,
come up with these ideas and then I make other people do them, you know, like parks on or a park bench on the switchbacks, and Ben had to do the heavy lifting, and a pickleball court, and now Brian's stuck with that. And I just, you know, whatever.
you're an idea person.
I have ideas.
All right. Thanks, Janet.
Yep.
Okay, Councilmember Malkovich.
We haven't met, but we have been emailing and texting a lot because there are quite a few different bills in the legislature that have to do with animals, but the one that might pertain to us the most is Senate Bill 97, which requires us to add to our emergency plan for our city a whole section on animals, small animals, chickens, pigs, goats, up to horses and livestock. So so they're going back and forth because I think with the fires in California, there's just been a lot of notice of what do you do with animals when there's when there's a disaster, and so they're wanting all the cities to do that. It's passed the Senate twice, but it's circled, meaning it's holding, because a lot of our sheriff in particular is one who testified it against it, saying, hey, don't ask the cities to add a fiscal note to update their plan because it would cost a lot of money to do that. Let them figure it out on their own what their plan's going to be. So I don't know if they'll listen to that. Our senator voted against it, and with the same reasoning, but it still will go to the House, and we don't know where it's at. But if so, then we would have to pay for that. Last time when we got our whole plan done, that was on the grant of this county. This we would have to pay for to be professionally
could
put
just
in.
Add something.
It has to be, there will be more to it than just, oh, we're going to shove them all down in Salem. Can't be like that. And it would be for a lot of, it's pretty more
Okay.
complicated than you would think, but people want to know their pets are okay. So that's all there. There is another bill I wanted to just tell you that is SB 165 about broadband, about fiber and getting internet at your house. And it's one that's pretty controversial. The league opposes it because it also tucks in there very nicely about revenue bonds and how you can get them and not get them, and that you would never be able to get a revenue bond without a vote of the citizens. So if you wanted to put in anything, you'd have to wait till an election day and notice it. And so your capital projects would be years out. And then what if they say no, and it's something that you really need? And so they're working to try to stop that and just to say, hey, cities should be able to get their revenue bonds for infrastructure projects specifically without having to have it always be at a vote to spend the money.
Seems like that's what elections are for.
I know. Well, you would have to notice it, and it would be the whole next year.
No, I'm saying
Yeah.
that you elect representatives
Yeah.
to share your vision of your community.
Exactly. So that's what they're going for. So just that, I thought of that as we were talking about the Comcast thing, even though that's a private entity. If anytime we wanted to put something in, that could be a problem if we didn't have a vote of the whole city on election day only.
Yeah, well, it sounds messy.
Yeah. That's all.
Oh, that's it? Okay, great, thank you. Upcoming city council meetings. We talked a little bit about this last time. We are going to be doing the community development as part of the town hall meeting. Jody had a good suggestion about updates in a couple of other areas. So what we're thinking is we would just split the meeting into have the first hour be some of the public work stuff. Oh, and Ben, you also contributed to that discussion, I know, and had some good thoughts. So it would be discussion concerning sort of ongoing specific city infrastructure type issues, and then turning the second hour to the community development. I can't remember his name.
Sunrise.
It's
Daniel.
right here. It's right here. Yeah,
Daniel Jensen.
Daniel Jensen.
Okay.
It's like,
Yeah, so that's kind of what we're envisioning. So anybody have any other thoughts as far as upcoming items to discuss? Okay, then why don't we take a 6-minute break and reconvene at 8:05. Okay. We will call our council meeting to order. And Councilmember Hilliard, if you would offer the invocation, and Councilmember Hutchings, will you lead us in the pledge from afar?
Our dear Father in heaven, we are so very grateful to be able to come together as servants of this city. We are grateful for our residents, for their kindness, willingness to serve this community. We pray that thou wilt bless us, keep us safe, especially with these snowstorms that have come down that are quite slick and treacherous. Pray that thou wilt allow everybody to be patient and safe as they traverse these roads. We pray that thou wilt watch over those in our city that are sick or afflicted or are lonely or are feeling sorrowful in any way, that thou wilt pour out thy spirit upon them, protect them, and watch over them. Pray that thou wilt watch over Sergeant Dutson as he also fulfills his duties in keeping us safe as well, and the other sheriffs that are involved in protecting us. We pray that thou wilt watch over our fire department and our EMS, that they may also be protected in watching over and serving us as well. We pray that thou wilt watch over those of our staff that do so much away from their families and sacrifice so much, that thou wilt bless them as well. And we say these things in the name of thy Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
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 Thank you.
Please rise and repeat with me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. All right, public comment. I think we've heard from everybody that wants to speak. And anybody online? Okay. With that, we will close the public comment portion and move on to item 15.
Mayor,
Yes.
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn,
Adjourn,
not
yes.
adjourn, not
Nice.
adjourn,
Second
adjust,
Amend.
amend. That word is amend. I was thinking adjust. No, amend the agenda to include the SCBA equipment for the fire department
Okay, very good. Thank you. I'm glad you brought
as
that
a
up.
large purchase item.
Okay, so that's a motion as articulated by Councilmember Malkovich,
I'll second it.
seconded by Councilmember Lunt. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that motion carries. So that's it for that issue, right? That's,
Well, we have to
have to vote on it.
okay, so that's what I was
So
wondering.
which,
So
where
we-
do you want to put it? Like after
Why don't-
17 or right now?
Let's just do it now.
Okay.
If
I
someone
make a
wants to
motion that we approve the purchase of the SCBA equipment that we were told about earlier by our fire chief, Ted Mickelson, not to exceed $50,000.
Okay, thank you. Motion by Councilmember Malkovich,
Second that.
seconded by Councilmember Hilliard. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. Okay, item 15, appointment of Michelle Crump to the Parks, Trails, and Recreation Committee, Resolution 2025-06.
I'll make a motion
Okay,
that we approve Michelle.
a motion by Councilmember Lunt,
I'll second it.
seconded by Councilmember Hutchings. This is roll call, right? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that motion carries. The Pace and Sewer Agreement.
Thank you.
Thanks, thanks, Sherry. Pace and Sewer Agreement, motion to authorize me to sign.
I'll make that motion that you sign the agreement with Payson for wastewater.
Okay, thank you. A motion by Councilmember Kinnison,
I'll second it.
seconded by Councilmember Hilliard. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that motion carries. Similar for the Comcast franchise agreement. Approval, authorization for me to sign that.
I just have one question. So there's not any financial obligation with that agreement to the city, right? They'll cover everything that they want to do through
They'll
permit.
Pay you.
Yeah, so there's the payment, and then I think that's a good question. I mean, even administratively, we don't
Right.
want to be stuck with a lot of oversight. I was talking to Jody about that earlier today, and, you know, the expectation is that the fees that we have associated with the different permitting
Okay, should cover that.
processes should cover
Okay.
that, so it should be zero cost.
Okay.
Anyone want to make that motion?
I'll make a motion.
Okay, a motion by Councilmember Lund,
I'll second it.
seconded by Councilmember Hutchings. All in favor?
I
I,
Any opposed? Okay.
Yeah.
With that,
Motion
we
to
can
adjourn.
accept the motion to adjourn. Okay, is that a motion to adjourn?
Yes, it is.
Okay, a
It's next
motion to
on the
adjourn
list.
By Councilmember Malkovich,
I'll second that.
seconded by Councilmember Hilliard. We're adjourned.
So let it be done.
Yeah. All right.